when you look at the possible perspectives that you boil down, that are prisons of our own making, what would you say are some of the most common ones? If you look at it from, pattern perspective.
Yeah, I think, I often talk about the three main buckets, which sort of are a catch-all for the different ways that people perceive themselves. And it's not even, as I said, it's not a limiting belief. The way I phrase it, it's the you that you are for yourself, right? Which might seem like a weird statement, but it's accurate, right? The you that you are for yourself. So it's not that you think or have a belief that you're not enough. It's that who you are for yourself is you're not enough. And so that is the view of life that you look through. So I talk about like some sense of inadequacy, some sense of insecurity, and some sense of scarcity as being the three main catch-alls, right, that everyone can relate to. Inadequacy is normally about ourselves, that I'm not enough, I'm not loved, I'm not valuable. Insecurity is how I relate to my environment. So there's a fundamental feeling of like, we're not safe, and particularly for the feminine, sadly, because of this patriarchal world we live in and that they've been abused for centuries, right? So a woman walking to her car at night has a totally different experience than a guy walking to his car at night, right? Just because of the way that this society is sadly set up. So the not safe really is the feeling of insecurity. For the way it manifests in a masculine, it might be insecurity in performance, right? So I've worked with high-end executives who are super well-informed about their industry. They've worked in a company for decades, but they're still scared shitless to get on stage and present, right? So insecurity. And then scarcity is like where people have this misnomer that there isn't enough as it relates to the material world, right? So there's a relationship to ourselves, there's a relationship to others, and there's a relationship to the material world. And so they tend to be the default factory settings of the subconscious that we look through. Something wrong with me, I'm not fundamentally loved and accepted by society, and I don't have enough. And then it's like slap on the ass and, go figure it out, have fun. Become who you think you should be as a compensation for your inadequacy. Do whatever you have to as a strategy to win love and favor from, your fellow species, and then accumulate as much as you can to compensate for the scarcity. And those three right there, you start to see the idiosyncrasies that people deal with, right? People are exhausted. They're living in a pretense. They're trying to be who they think they should be in order to be loved and accepted. They are doing whatever they can as a strategy to compensate for their own shortcomings, whether they work harder, they become people pleasers, perfectionists. The social media game is obviously, where this is replete with the attempts to, through filters and posters and positions and light, to look good, and then the hoarding mentality that it is to be human, the holding on to things as though anything exogenous to us has any value at all. It just doesn't. So when you really start to see that, it's like, holy shit, no wonder people are just like sick and tired. They're playing this quintessential hamster wheel game of really trying to overcome their own blind spots of lies. It's, when you really see it, it's, there's so much compassion. That's why, again, I love what I get to do, because as I tell people, I can't give you something you don't already have. I'm just helping you see what's in the way of you realizing that. And it's a dissolution process, right? And we live in a very solution-oriented society.
Yeah, where growth is perceived in the acquisition of more.
Yeah.
And as opposed to addition by subtraction and actually the removal of things.
Which is why I love Ayurveda. And when I, became a practitioner of that, there were so many correlates between what I already intuitively understood in my own work and what the science of 6,000 years old was pointing to physiologically. And there's something called Samprapti, which is the 6 stages of disease. And it really talks about the physiology and the doshas, right? If you have too much pitta or vata or kapha, these different energies, then you eventually get sickness. And the first stage of disease is accumulation. And yet here we live psychologically in a world of scarcity. And so the impulse is to accumulate. So it's just so ironic that the very thing that's driving us to try and find some sense of solace from the deep programming that there's not enough is itself the first stage to sickness.
Yeah.
And so it's this vicious cycle where until you realize that you are what you're looking for, like the seeker is the sought, the place we're looking from is the place we're looking for, right? It's just so stunning when you get it, because we're playing this game of illusion, right? That there's something missing, something wrong. And now I'm going to play this compensatory role where actually the means by which I'm trying to find that which I am is creating the obstacle and the sickness that then I have to deal with.